There's a thing people say about the internet, that everything you post lives forever, that nothing truly disappears, that even after you delete something, even after you clear your history, wipe your browser, change your settings, somewhere, on some server you've never heard of, in some corner of the web you'll never visit, a copy of you still exists. What if the internet doesn't just keep records of you? What if something on the other side of it has been keeping records of you? Mara was 22 when she started noticing things disappearing. Nothing dramatic, not keys or wallets or anything that would make you call the police. Small things, the kind of things you're not even sure you had in the first place. One day, it was there. The next time she looked, it wasn't. The thing that finally made her pay attention was a file on her laptop. She was looking through her downloads folder one afternoon, completely mundane, just clearing out old documents, when she found a folder she didn't recognize. It had no name, just a string of numbers. She almost deleted it without opening it. But then she did. Inside were screenshots, hundreds of them, screenshots of her screen. Not of anything sensitive, not at first glance. Her browser, open tabs, a document she was working on, an email she was composing. But the timestamps were what stopped her breathing. They went back 6 months. 6 months of her screen, captured every few hours, organized into subfolders by date. She had not taken them. She sat at her desk for a long time, trying to name what she was feeling. It wasn't fear exactly, not yet. It was something more like vertigo. The feeling of realizing the ground under your feet has been something other than ground for longer than you knew. She called a friend who worked in IT. He went through her laptop. He found the software, or what was left of it. It had been partially uninstalled, not fully, but deliberately enough that isolating it was difficult. He said it was a remote access tool, the kind used for monitoring, sometimes used legitimately, for IT departments managing work computers, sometimes not. He asked her if anyone else had ever had access to her laptop. She said no. He asked if she'd ever clicked a link she didn't recognize. She thought about it for a long time. Then she remembered a forum. She'd been on it about 8 months ago. A writing community, amateur fiction, mostly genre stuff. She'd posted a few things, nothing personal, just stories. Someone had replied to one of her posts. A long, detailed reply. They'd clearly read carefully, commented on specific details, asked thoughtful questions. Then they'd sent her a direct message with a link. Said it was a collaborative writing document, that they'd started working on something and thought she'd be a good fit. She couldn't remember if the document had loaded properly. She couldn't remember what happened after. It was 8 months ago. It was the kind of small, forgettable moment that you never know to remember until later. She went back to the forum. The account that had messaged her, gone. The thread her post had been in, gone. Her own account, suspended. For a reason the site's automated message described only as terms of service violation. She hadn't violated anything. She filed a report with the police. She was told it would be looked into. She bought a new laptop. She never went back to the forum. The part Mara couldn't let go of was the screenshots in that folder, the ones that went back 6 months. She went through every single one of them, and most of them were exactly what you'd expect. Her browser, her documents, her ordinary life on a screen. But in one folder, near the beginning, there was a screenshot she almost missed. It was of her desktop. Standard, unremarkable, except in the corner of the screen, barely visible at the edge of the frame, was the live feed from her own laptop camera. A small box, a thumbnail, her room, her desk, her face looking at the screen, not knowing anything. Someone hadn't just been watching what she was doing. They had been watching her. And the thing about that is that they could have hidden it better. They almost did. But they left it there. One screenshot with the camera feed visible. One. Like they wanted her to find it. Like they wanted her to know. She doesn't know why someone would want that. She doesn't know what she was to them. She doesn't know if they still know where she is. The USB drive never came back. The notebook never came back. The photograph never came back. She's still not sure if they were taken or if she's just looking for patterns in ordinary loss. She can't stop checking, and whoever it was, they did that to her, whether they're still there or not. Joel was 26, unemployed in the way that had stopped feeling temporary, spending too much time online in the specific way that happens when days stop having structure. He was on one of those link aggregator sites, the kind where threads branch into other threads, and before you know it, you're 3 hours deep reading about something you'd never have sought out deliberately. He ended up on a forum he didn't recognize. The URL didn't look strange. It was just a name. Nothing dark about it. Nothing that would make you pause. It was a community board, by the look of it, the kind where people post anonymously and discuss things in long chains of replies. But what they were discussing stopped him cold. The thread at the top of the page was called "What He's Doing Right Now." He clicked it. The first post was a timestamp from 3 days ago. It said, "Watching a video, something about architecture. Paused it to get water." He read the next reply. Back, still on the couch, he moved the throw blanket to the left side. And the next. He's on his phone now. Looks like he's texting someone. Or reading. Hard to tell from this angle. He scrolled down. The thread was hundreds of posts long. Entries added every few hours, sometimes every few minutes. Some long, some just a sentence. He fell asleep with the light on again. He's cooking something. Can smell it from here, almost. Eggs, probably. He looked out the window for a long time today. Didn't see us. Joel read the whole thread. He doesn't know why. He says he knows why. It was because the feeling that had started at the top of the page was the feeling that this was about him, not a certainty, not even a conviction, just a feeling. The throw blanket in his apartment was on the left side of the couch. He had moved it there 3 days ago. He had been watching a video about architecture last week. He had gotten water in the middle of it. He went through the thread again. Every detail was small, domestic, ordinary, the kind of things you couldn't be certain about, because ordinary life is repetitive and most people have throw blankets and most people get up for water. He told himself that. He told himself it 3 or 4 times. And then he got to a post near the bottom from earlier that same day. It said, he found the thread. And below that, 30 minutes later. He's reading it right now. And below that, 10 minutes after. He'll close the laptop soon. He always does when he's scared. He doesn't know that changes nothing. Joel closed the laptop. He sat in his apartment in the silence of that, and he didn't move for a long time. He opened it again 20 minutes later because he needed to know what came next. He needed to know if they'd written. He opened it again. They had. He called the police. He explains this part of the story with something close to embarrassment because he knows how it sounds. He had no physical evidence of anything. He had a forum thread that described, in vague domestic terms, the movements of someone who could have been anyone. He had the feeling that it was him. He had the timestamp matching. He had the blanket. The police were not unkind, but there was nothing there they could hold on to. He tried to find the forum again the next morning. The URL returned nothing. Page not found. He searched for the thread title. Nothing. He tried to find any record of it in his browser history. His history from that session had been cleared. Not by him. He knows there are explanations for that. Browser settings, automatic clearing, privacy tools he'd enabled and forgotten. He knows. But he also remembers sitting in his apartment in the quiet after he closed the laptop, before he opened it again, with the specific feeling that something outside his window was very still. Not moving, not making sound, just oriented toward him. He moved apartments 4 months later. He tells people it was for other reasons. The lease, the neighborhood, practical things. Maybe it was. When he tells this story, and he doesn't tell it often, he says the worst part isn't not knowing if it was real. The worst part is the line he read before he closed the laptop the first time. He doesn't know that changes nothing. He thinks about that line more than he should. What it implies, what it assumes, that wherever he goes, whatever he does, the watching doesn't stop because the watcher moves. That being watched isn't about proximity, it's about attention. And something somewhere had given him all of its attention. He doesn't know if that's still true. He keeps the blinds down. This one I'm telling secondhand. I want to say that before I start, because the person this happened to, she gave me permission to tell it, but she doesn't tell it herself. She says when she tells it herself, she can't finish it. She always stops in the same place. So this is me, telling you what happened to Elise. Elise was 24. She worked night shifts at a fulfillment warehouse on the edge of the city. She rented a one-room apartment 20 minutes away. She lived alone. She wasn't on social media in any meaningful way. No accounts with her real name. She'd deleted most things years before, for reasons that weren't dramatic. She just hadn't liked how it made her feel. So when she found the profile, she didn't have a framework for it. She was searching for herself, the way people do sometimes, late at night, just to see what's out there. She typed her full name into a search engine. Not common, not rare, just hers. And what came back on the second page of results was a profile on a platform she'd never heard of. The platform's name meant nothing to her. The design was minimal, text only, mostly. The kind of thing that looked like it had been built by one person and not updated in years. But the profile had her name, her real name, her full name, and below it, a photo. Not a photo she'd taken, not one she'd posted anywhere. A photo of her, from a distance, on a street she recognized as being 2 blocks from her apartment. She was looking at her phone. She didn't know when it had been taken. The profile had no other photos. It had no bio. It had no posts. It had one field filled in, below her name, just 2 words. Still here. She screenshotted it. She sent the URL to a friend who confirmed they could see it too, that it wasn't a glitch, wasn't a rendering error, wasn't something only showing up on her device. She submitted a report to the platform. She submitted a report to the police. She changed her schedule at work. She stopped walking the 2 blocks she normally walked. 3 days later, she checked the URL again. The profile was gone. Not deactivated, not suspended. Gone in the way that leaves no trace. The URL returned a 404, a dead end, as if the page had never existed. But she had the screenshot. The friend had seen it. It had been real. And then, a week later, she was cleaning her apartment, going through things she'd been putting off when she found something under her bed. Not something she'd lost, not something she recognized. A phone, not her phone, a different phone, older model, with no SIM card, no case, no identifying marks. She didn't touch it. She took a photo of it where it lay. She called the police. They came. They took it. It had been wiped. Whatever had been on it was gone. No data, no history, no prints they could use. No one had a key to her apartment except her. There was no sign of entry, no scratched locks, no damaged frame, nothing. The building's hallway camera, she was told, had experienced a gap in recording. 4 hours, 2 nights before she found the phone. A technical issue, the building manager said, happened sometimes. The detective on her case was thorough. She says that. She doesn't want to be unfair. He was thorough and he took it seriously, and at the end of the investigation, he told her that he had nothing to charge anyone with because he had no one to charge. She moved out of the apartment 6 weeks later. She doesn't tell this story herself. She stops in the same place every time she tries. I asked her once where she stops. She said, at the phone. Not because finding it was the scariest part, she said, but because of what it meant that it was there. Someone had stood in her apartment, in her specific apartment, under her specific bed, placed a specific object, and left without any evidence of being there at all. They hadn't taken anything. They hadn't disturbed anything. They'd left something. She says she still doesn't understand what they wanted. She says that's the part that stays. Not fear, not even anger. Just the question, what do you want from me? She's never gotten an answer, and I think on some level she's still waiting for one. Not because she wants it, but because not knowing means it isn't over. It just means the next thing hasn't happened yet.